nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
What's up, Madridistas? It's Kiyan Sobhani here. December 24th, 2024 is almost over, and what a year it's been for Madridistas. It's been incredible, unforgettable, and we would be remiss not to revisit and reflect on some of our favorite moments from 2024. So in a second, we're going to do that. And before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsors. TAFC Academy is where you want to enroll yourself and your kids. They got winter camps coming up, March break camps coming up. Can't believe that March break is coming up soon, but they got swimming, basketball, football. It's not just a soccer academy. You can get involved in a variety of programs. Go to tacsports.ca. We love them, and we're super thankful for them for just hosting our podcast in December. We'll be back, no question. tacsports.ca. And of course, Moji-Mates.com. Use code MojiMates20. You get a 20% discount, and that's valid until January 7th. Moji-Mates.com. Use code MojiMates20. You can get your favorite player on a shirt: Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Kylian Mbappe, Eduardo Camavinga, Fede Valverde, you name it. Even some historical legends to Alfredo Di Stefano. Shout out to Alfredo Di Stefano. 35 years ago today, he won the one and only Super Ballon d'Oro. So if you want Di Stefano on a shirt or your favorite player, whoever it is, Moji-Mates.com. Use code MojiMates20 for a 20% discount. Let's see who's coming on the show today. Drum roll. Leah Revelle, what's up?
Yay! I'm excited to go through these. Also, shout out to Stefano.
Shout out to Di Stefano always. I love these segments that we do. Like we go and we rank a certain thing, whether it's transfer targets for a certain position, or today, which is we're going to rank our top 5 favorite moments of the 2024 calendar year, which of course means we don't get to include all of the insane Jude winners from 2023, like that first half of last season. We can't include those. So we're going to go through it. I'm actually just curious off the top. And if the answer to this is yes, you don't have to spoil it now. You can save it for later in the show. But did you have any moments from this season in particular, or were they all from last season?
I have a few honorable mentions from this season, but all of the big moments were from last season.
So the way we're going to do this is that Leah has a top 5. I have a top 5. We both have honorable mentions, and we're going to go back and forth. So Leah will name her 5th one. I'll name my 5th, and we'll just go back and forth 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 until we get it done. So let's start. What is your 5th favorite moment of the 2024 calendar year?
Okay, well, you made a really good point that I didn't actually think about. But like technically this was 2023. Like the summer. But we ended the season. So my 5th was Bellingham signing, but let's change that to Bellingham's overall performance throughout the season. His impact in 2024. Last season from January and this season to now. I think that he has made I think we expected, given his the galactico-ness around his signing, but the way he just settled, and I forget he's so young. And the way he played, he's literally like a carbon copy of Zidane, and the way that he settled, but also impacted so significantly for an English player in Spain, which is unheard of. So, that's my 5th.
So it's not a moment, but it's just Jude Bellingham as a whole.
I would say, just all the moments that he provided us in 2024? And if was it the first Classico or the second Classico where he scored a brace against Barca? The long shot and then the tap in. That was in
was the
2023,
first one.
right? Yeah.
So
Well,
it actually ties in nicely to what my number 5 is. It's not Jude Bellingham as a whole, but maybe before I even reveal it, I will just obviously agree with you. It's the most agreeable take ever, is that Jude Bellingham was an unbelievable signing. I think the cool thing about him is that even though we knew how great he was, there was just so many surprises with him as we got to know him and got to see him up close. And even the most avid Borussia Dortmund watcher who saw him week in, week out, didn't know he was this good. And what I mean by that is that he never put up the goal scoring numbers he did when he signed. Like, those first 6 months for us were unbelievable from a goal scoring perspective. He took his own game to another level. And I keep going back to this. Like, when we first signed him, there was a lot of people who said, we don't really need him. He's not an essential signing. He's a bit of a luxury because we already have Fede and we have Camavinga. For now, we have Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. Obviously, like, we knew at some point they would get phased out. But I kept saying, like, yeah, he is not. I think that there's actually an element of truth to that statement, because there were more glaring holes. Like, we had just lost Karim Benzema, right, who we didn't replace. Mm-hmm. So there were more glaring holes, no question. And I think my thing was, he's one of those players that you just can't pass up on, regardless of if you have someone in that position or not, because of how generational he is. And if you can just hold on to, like, when Modric and Kroos eventually do come, like, there's no one really better you would want in midfield, because he covers ground like Modric did at his peak defensively, and he can progress the ball. Like, no one can progress the ball like Toni Kroos, but, Bellingham can do so much, and he has some of that slower build-up ability and the ability to just stay composed and cool under pressure. You can't pass up on him. Now, like, even me, like, I didn't know he was this good either. Like, no one really did. And I think that's what was amazing about him, is that he went from, like, this luxury signing to, like, oh my God, could you imagine if we didn't do everything we could to bring this guy here?
Literally.
So I'll co-sign on the idea of, like, Jude Bellingham as a whole. That's definitely something was huge in 2024. But my number 5 was actually Jude Bellingham's game winner in the Classico in, was it March?
March, it would have been, I would say.
Yeah, so he actually sunk Barca twice in the same season, in addition to, like, him and Vinny killing them in the Super Cup too in January, which that's one of my honorable mentions, but did not make my top 5. I think it was just special because I just remember being there, and I remember Fermin Lopez's celebration where he was so full of himself prior in that game, and then Bellingham coming in, and it was like literally the last kick of the game, and he scores, and it's just like, wow, he did it again. The Bernabeu is going crazy, and that they had just installed the screens, the 360 screens, so then you, like, look up and everyone can see up close. He's doing the Jude celebration. That's number 5 for me.
To be fair, to add to that, like, I was saying to Diego yesterday or the day before, whenever Real Madrid played, on Sunday, when Bellingham got subbed off, they were singing "Hey Jude" again. And, like, for a huge Spanish club and a huge Spanish fan base, like Real Madrid's fan base, like, for them to be singing an English song by the Beatles is just, like, so, it's, like, unorthodox, So,
yeah,
I don't know. All of those moments, I feel, can just go into, like, the overarching. He's crazy. He's insane.
What's your number 4?
Okay, so again, all of our Classico wins, including 2023. I'm gonna shove it in there. But all of them, including the cup and the league, I think that, like, you know what I mean? That they forget, they have amnesia that we won several times against them in this calendar year. And it's funny how anyway.
I mean, I think from there, just to put myself in their shoes, which is not something I would normally care to do, but I think it's like they need anything to cling to.
Anything.
It's just so rare for them to have a W, like a meaningful W. Like I before we hit record on this podcast, I was recording a podcast with Diego on the Churros episode, and I asked him, like, what were your top 3 Barca moments in 2024? He couldn't name one. Like, there was nothing.
No.
Like
Literally.
he kind of sheepishly mentioned the fact that, you know, they beat us and Bayern this season, you know, span of a week. But that's
yeah, did they mention Rodri Ballon d'Or? Did they mention Spain Euro?
He wanted to mention Spain, but that's why I specifically said Barca. So he couldn't. Yeah.
Oh, gotta love it. But yeah, I think that it was the same kind of thing as now. They're just loud always, you know? And
Yeah.
so it was especially before the Classico in 2023 in October.
Mm-hmm.
They were very loud towards Jude mostly.
Yes.
Saying, "Oh, tap in this, tap in that." And then he scored that like crazy long shot against them.
Yeah.
And then finished it off with a little tap in at the end.
Yeah, which is just icing on the cake. Icing on the cake. Yeah, it was perfect. My
So
number
that's my 4.
My number 4 is Toni Kroos's farewell. In specifically the last, I know I'm like tearing up, thinking I'm choking up a little bit right now. It just, as far as send-offs go, that was unparalleled, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
the biggest club legends don't get that at Real Madrid ever. Like if it was a case of like we had just been desensitized in the past 10 years, like Sergio Ramos is getting a farewell tribute game, you know, if Casillas had got it, if Cristiano had got it, go down the list. It's just so like we wouldn't maybe I wouldn't have maybe put it at the top of this list, but because it's so rare and we haven't seen anything like it since Zidane retired, it's just you factor in like how emotional that game was, his kids in the crowd, him crying, and like the players throwing him in the air, and of course it was perfect send off because just whatever it was, how 1, 2, I don't know, however many weeks, days later, he wins the Champions League, and this is just a perfect send off. So I think just the Kroos farewell tribute game was, for me, really special because he retired at the peak of his powers, and he's greatly missed. Even if we win trophies this season, he's still missed. He will always be missed. What a player that I just felt like incredibly emotionally attached to as the years went on. He really left an imprint on this fan base, I think.
It's funny you say that because before we started recording, I was going through my Twitter from like earlier this year and looking at all the things that I tweeted about whatever. And I said that about Kroos is like when Ramos left, I was sad. You know, like that's sad. When Cristiano left, I was sad. Marcelo's my favorite player. So like when Marcelo left, I was sad. But like nothing could have prepared me for the way that I felt when Toni Kroos left because I think it was just like a different, like you said, this different like weird emotional attachment I had to him. And I think it goes beyond like his like football perfectionism that he had as a player, but like he was such a character. And in the last year, no one really knew up until like whenever we actually knew. And everyone was kind of speculating that like I think there were rumors, but people were speculating because he was showing emotion for the first time. Like it was like a goal against, I don't remember who it was, but it was like a bottom table team, and he was like celebrating on the bench.
Yeah.
And like and the memes were like Toni Kroos wins 6 Champions Leagues or 5 Champions or whatever. Toni Kroos wins a bit like a World Cup, but Toni Kroos and like straight face. Toni Kroos scores a goal against, or we win against like Leganes, whoever, and he was like celebrating like crazy on the bench. And so yeah,
I remember once, like you remember that Super Cup game against Valencia years ago where he scored directly from a corner.
Yes.
And he did not celebrate. He just he just walked away. It was incredible.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of Toni Kroos. I feel like he was always just like very, even his tweets. Like he was so funny on social media. He was so funny in game, but like everyone kind of built an even bigger like love for him last year because for the first time he was like out of character for what we know him as. And so, yeah, I think it was the perfect send off. And I think so far, emotionally, that was the hardest one to process. And still, still is.
It'll at least be easier if we start winning and we can really turn a corner, which hopefully Sevilla game was a good omen for the rest of the season.
Hope so, literally.
What's your number 3?
Okay, my number 3 is winning on penalties against Manchester City, specifically Rudiger's penalty. And also, I'll add in there Lunen's saves because we wouldn't have even been in the final if it wasn't for Lunen, to be fair. So I think it's kind of the same thing as Barca. They were very loud. We know how Prem fans are. Earlier in the year, I was at an event in London with all English people, obviously. And we were in the green room and we were talking about the tie against City, or if we were to meet City again, or I forget if we had drawn them already or not. But they were saying like, oh, impossible. Like there's no way that Real Madrid is beating City this year, especially. They're saying John Stones is so much better than Rudiger. Like you're saying Rudiger is better than John Stones, and I'm like, hell yeah, like for sure. And it's just like really great. It's kind of the same thing that happened in 2022, you know, when you kind of get a little bit of vindication after those things happen. So yeah, it was nice to silence them a little bit and obviously proceed to move on to the final. But I think that was a moment.
I totally agree with that moment. I have it as number 2, so I'll just talk about it now, I guess. I would have had it as number 1, and now I'm just going to spoil everything. But I feel like number 1, I felt obligated to put it there, even though it wasn't like that emotional high for me. I think the most emotionally high point of the season for me was Rudiger.
Okay.
Rudiger penalty.
Interesting.
Even ahead of Joselu brace, which I'm assuming is going to come on your list very soon. I think it was just, I mean, part of it was just also my experience because I was there. And I just felt like in the heart of it, because the Etihad press row was pretty low to the pitch. And I was so overstimulated and there was just so much happening around me. At one point, like during the penalty shot, I think it was like the closest I've ever come to like literally physically hyperventilating. Like I was shaking. I was so nervous. And it was just also, you're talking about fans being loud. And I've told this story before, but City fans were very obnoxious in that game. And at one point when De Bruyne scored, they started pounding their fists on the press table where the Spanish journalists were sitting. And I was sitting right there. And of course, by the time Rudiger scored, they just exit the stadium in record time. And what was really special about that night, because I had been at the 4-0 loss the season prior as well, when we lost 4-0 in the Etihad. Mm-hmm. And the one where we won in the penalty shootout, the Madridista attendance was double than what it was. And they took over an entire like column at the Etihad, and they just took over the stadium. And so I think just it was just a bit of a surreal moment when Rudiger scored the penalty, because everything at that point, in my opinion, was just stacked up against us, because the most reliable guy, Luka Modric, missed the first penalty. And just the scenes of Lucas Vazquez having balls of steel, Rudiger and Nacho, like our defenders had to close it out. And funny enough, Rudiger and Nacho were key contributors offensively against Bayern too, because Rudiger set up the Joselu, and wasn't Nacho involved in that play as well? I think he was. Anyways, and then of course the scenes later of when you see like Kepa telling Lunin like dive this way, or was it Rudiger? I can't remember which one. Rudiger,
it was
Kepa, and also wasn't Rudiger, because Rudiger had played with Kovacic at Chelsea, and he knew, I think.
Maybe. I don't know, but no, I think it was Kepa, because it was on the bench. And that was like Kepa's best contribution to Real Madrid for the whole season.
No, okay. I just remembered there was two things. They were both Leah. So Kepa takes Lunin aside and gives him pointers but I seem to remember Rudiger at one point going like this.
Pointing.
I gotta bring it up on the screen if I can.
You're probably right.
So that, anyway, so that just that entire moment, yeah, here it is. So but just that entire moment was surreal. Just being there, it's honestly one of the most unforgettable memories I've ever had as a Madridista, and I would put it number
Really?
one. Yeah, I would put it number one, but I just felt obligated to not do that based on what number one ended up being. But yeah, so here it's just an image, but I'll just bring this up so you can see. So this, I did remember it correctly. It was both Lunin and Kappa. Oh, I can't even share my. I'll just do this. I'll share my screen. I literally just Googled image Rudiger pointing to. So there's
Yeah.
two things. Kappa is telling Lunin on the bench, and then Rudiger is
Uh-huh.
pointing this way, telling Lunin to drop to dive this way as well. And I think
Oh,
that was on the Kovacic penalty because Rudiger had played with Kovacic at Chelsea. Yeah.
Well, both of them, Kepa and Rudiger.
Yes, both of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
And also the penalty shootout started with a Modric miss.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
Modric's pen was saved. So
Yeah.
already, like, City fans were even,
Yeah.
like you said, banging like higher.
Yeah.
And like we were like, oh, well, fuck.
I mean, I think the mental fortitude of the team to dig deep in that moment and recover and hit all 4 penalties, plus Lunin being amazing, was the whole thing from start to finish, in my opinion, was just heroic and ballsy from the team.
Yeah.
And not only did Modric miss, Vinicius and Kroos had been subbed off, so they weren't taking penalties. So I think Bellingham was the only attacker who took a penalty at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
So that was number 3, right?
Okay. Yes.
What was your number 2?
I have trouble with this one.
Okay.
Because if you speak a little bit about obligation, and I feel like number 1 is an obligation to be number 1 because that, in hindsight, is like the most, the biggest moment of the season, the most emotional moment. In terms of the way I felt a lot less confident in my number 2 moment than my number 1 moment. I'll keep the number 1 at number 1. So my number 2 moment is Joselu against Bayern.
Yeah.
My emotions in that game were similar to my emotions in the game against City in 2022. And the game against Chelsea and the game against PSG, but mostly City, when like in 3 seconds, we've gone from, like, my mental state has gone from starting to process that, okay, we're being eliminated in the semifinals fucking again against City.
Yeah.
To just kidding. Just kidding, never mind. And I think that what makes that moment greater is not only did we think that it was kind of like chalked up and done by that point in the game, Joselu was like, he was a sub, he came on, he never really played consistent minutes. He did like really step up throughout the season. Like, he scored important goals. He was a good super sub. Like, he was a good, last minute fresh legs, get an aerial threat in the box, or like a poacher that will just like kind of like a, ironically, 14-14, kind of like a Chicha, just will throw his body in front of the ball, in front of the goal, and just like try and get a body part on the ball to put it in. And so I love that. Like, I think he was a good addition. At first, like, people were like skeptical about him being Benzema's replacement, but it ended up being like a cheap, easy, good move. And he was so passionate about just playing for Real Madrid too. Like, even the thing of the final of like, he was watching with his dad at a Champions League final for Real Madrid, and now he's playing in one, but I think for it to be him and both goals, like a brace to put us through to the final, I think, or to the semifinal, I think was like, I don't know. It's just, again, the whole like remontada situation, the whole like emotional roller coaster, and then like it being Joselu of all people, the last person that you probably expect to put you through in the knockouts. So that is my number 2.
It's definitely, it was my number 3, but top 2 totally makes sense to me. It was surreal. I mean, going back to how you were feeling about like, oh, we're gonna lose to City again or whatever, and then you go to Bayern and you're in a situation again where you need to come back. And I thought like when Davies scored and we were starting to get closer to the final whistle, I felt like, okay, good run. I mean, we're spoiled. We couldn't, it's hard to come this far every year. It was like 15 Champions League semifinals we had in like what 15 years. I don't know what the stat is, but it's an absurd amount. It's more than anyone by far. But I still felt like, it's not completely done and dusted. But when Joselu scored his first goal, I was like, all right, this is the thing that happens now. There's no way we're losing this. Like, we have all the momentum. Bayern are probably like freaking out like every team does when this happens to them in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And so I felt pretty great. But the fact that he scored it again, I mean, it put him up like pretty comfortably because I actually went through it. I did the exercise because someone asked, where does he rank among the greatest loan players in Real Madrid history? And he is number one. Like I actually went through it. Like he is the best loan player ever.
Yeah.
One of the greatest piece of businesses we've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Literally. Yeah. And like, do you know that I have seen this tweet floating around Twitter? But like, it's like, don't ever fall in love with a lone player. But like, I feel like in terms of output, in terms of like personality and the way that he meshed with the team, the way that he just like fit into Family FC, Yeah. I think it's not surprising that is an accurate stat because
no question.
Yeah.
No question.
I miss him. We miss him.
So that was number 2. So what's your number 1?
It has to be 15. It has to be 15 Champions League final. I was there, so it makes it extra
That's
special.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the second Champions League that I've seen us win in a few years. I got to see, ironically, 2022 also in Paris. So, this is what I'm saying. Like, there's an obligation to put it at number 1 because obviously it's our 15th Champions League. Everyone doubted us, like they always do. I feel like I felt a little more confident in that match than I did against Bayern. So emotionally, I think the Joselu one was probably higher in the sense of like my emotions were at like a roller coaster. Against Dortmund, it could also be like because I was there, I felt like with fans and with everything rather than watching it at home, like you have the distractions of like the support, so it didn't feel as like I felt a lot more confident against Dortmund than I did against Bayern in that moment before Joselu scored the first goal, but we still won our 15th Champions League. It was still, like you said, Toni Kroos's last one. He won against his first Champions League was won against Dortmund. His last Champions League was won against Dortmund. It was Jude's first Champions League. It was like, a 5th and a 6th for some of our veteran players. It was in London, which was like kind of funny. And yeah, I think like a Champions League win is a Champions League win, so it has to be number 1.
Yeah, like I said, obligated to. I mean, it's funny because like this is a very spoiled thing to say, but it's almost like if there's no comeback, it's like I don't know, it just doesn't hit as hard. Like it's not. It's a little bit more anticlimactic,
I'm so happy you said that because that's exactly we've won so many. Like it's amazing. Obviously, I'm so happy, but
I mean, it's weird. Like I felt this way even in 2022, like when we won the Champions League.
Yeah,
the Liverpool final was like the most boring, and even though that's the one where we actually won it. It doesn't like rank as high as what we did in the knockouts. And I felt kind of similar to this one.
Yeah.
And maybe if Dortmund had have scored first and then we came back, it would have kind of hit harder. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If I had to like pinpoint one specific moment from the final, which we did not really play well for the majority of that game, it would have been the moment I think Carvajal scored the header.
Yes.
That was like pretty special. And it was like obviously the captain, and he had been so great up until that point that season.
Technically the game winner.
Yeah.
So and he's like a little baby right back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Now, when's the last time you seen Carvalho score a header?
Right. Yeah, it was pure fight.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, that was my number one too.
Has to be. Okay, honorable mentions though.
Let's do it.
I have a few.
Okay.
I'm gonna start off with a funny one.
Okay.
Because it's like so bad that it's good.
Can't wait.
Vallejo in his disaster class after coming on and conceding 2 goals in 4 minutes. I forget
Was that this season?
Yeah, I think it was this season, like super early. It
Yeah.
must have been like August or something, and we were winning. And then everyone was like, "Hell yeah!" Because you know how Vallejo has like a little like spot in everyone's heart for whatever reason.
Yes. Well, it partly because he became a cult hero
After
against
City.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the iconic picture. And then still like put up terrible disaster classes after that, and everyone's still like, "Oh, give the poor guy a chance. It's his vehicle." Anyway, yeah, he came on, literally conceded 2 goals in like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And I forget who it was against, and I forget
Alaves.
if he went. And did we go on to win that or lose that or
Yeah,
draw
we were
that?
up 3-0. The game was dusted. He came in and we conceded 2 goals. And then we started sweating out of nowhere. He played 10 minutes that game. That was his last appearance for Real Madrid. He hasn't played since. That was August 24th. No, sorry, August 24th.
Yeah. Yeah. Shock. Imagine my shock. So yeah, it's just so like funny. It's so humorous because everyone's still we all love him, but he's so bad. And he's just
drive-by shooting on Jesus Vallejo. We're trying to celebrate our best moments of 2024.
It was a good moment because no one I think that's why we still won. We still played like relatively well that game, if I remember correctly. And then like it was just so funny that like he had this like he said, he's a cult hero. He comes on and he just does what he always does. But it was just like one of those funny things. Okay, tell me one of yours.
Brahim Diaz outrunning Jan Oblak against Atletico.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was just became a meme instantly, right? And
yeah.
I mean, Oblak was so far ahead of him. Like he had such a head start, and Brahim just zoomed by him. And when Oblak running was like a sight I had never seen before.
Yeah.
But he was really struggling. Like, I don't know if it's because he's just so tall and it was just awkward, but Brahim just flew by him and then scored from nearly the halfway line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. The goal was the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Like, not only did he have a 50-yard head start,
yeah,
but he came, took the ball, passed, and then scored.
Yeah.
I agree. That's a good one. Okay, I have another one. Lucas Vazquez has had an insane season last year.
Yeah.
Complete with the penalty against City. And then also to build off of that, at one of the Real Madrid Baloncesto games, I think it was there. It might have been an NBA game. I don't remember. But it was in the summer, I think. And you know where they do the lookalike challenges on the Jumbotron? Yeah. They put Cafu, and then they beside it put Lucas
right.
Vazquez.
I just remember this. Yeah.
And that was after. It must have been after. Yeah, it would have been after 23-24 season, when he was really good, and the meme kind of evolved into a bigger one, and then that was the icing on the cake.
Hilarious! I forgot that had happened.
Yeah.
I'll give you another Brahim one.
Okay.
His goal against Leipzig.
Yes.
I guess, and I'll tell you another one from that game too. I had two from that game. The other one was Brahim's goal in that game, and it was a solo effort golazo. And Andre Lunin in that game was performing miracle after miracle.
Yeah.
And it was basically the same statistic as Thibaut Courtois from the Champions League final against Liverpool, where it was 9 saves, and no goalkeeper had done that since Courtois in the final in the Champions League. And before that, it was 20 years. Courtois had the craziest game of any goalkeeper. So it was incredible. I mean, those two were heroic in that game because we did not play. It's another game we did not play well in.
No. And then I think that's was that the game? I feel like that was the game where everyone was like, oh, damn, Lunin is the real deal. Why isn't this guy throughout the whole season he was performing, but then everyone after that was like, why isn't this guy getting more minutes?
Well, he went on a more global stage on that game, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
What else do you got?
Okay. I have an honorable mention for Carvajal.
Yeah.
Because last season was debatably his best season of all
Yeah.
time, in my opinion. Better than like Champions League Carvajal in 16-17, 17-18, 16-17. So that's on there. He just, again, like Champions League final game winner, the Euro, and his overall like consistency for Real Madrid. I don't think was he out even for an injury. I mean, that's ironic and sad saying that now, but in 23-24, did he even have a knock? I think maybe one knock briefly, but like other than that, like the year before or a couple of seasons before that, he like removed gluten. But last year, he just like everything. He was like gluten-free Carvajal last year. So that's another one of mine.
Last season, he only missed 2 games due to injury the whole season.
Yeah, which is like the season before, he missed almost the entire season.
Like, yeah, I mean, he had just so many injury problems, especially like when we're getting to the 2022, 2021, 2020 range.
Yeah.
He just had so many injuries, but I mean, last season he was very durable,
consistent, and made a huge impact. So,
another one for me, Vinicius versus Kimmich, just in general.
Yeah.
Just torturing him to the point where Kimmich just did not even vote for Vinny in the FIFA Best Awards. He's like, I can't forgive you for this.
Was what's his name? Yan Kuto?
Yeah. What about
24 also? Was that 23-24 also?
Oh, yeah, same season, I think. Yeah, same season.
Yeah, terrorized him, and then he didn't end up playing in the final after he moved to Dortmund. Or no, in the summer he moved to Dortmund, and we played Dortmund again.
We played Dortmund this season. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he didn't play because he got terrorized last season from Vinny. Yeah. Add that in there too.
Another Bayern moment. Oh, sorry, we're going to talk about Vinny? Kimmich?
No, I was just going to say add all the other right backs that he terrorized over the year.
There's so many. There's
so many.
Another Bayern thing, the Kroos finger point in the first leg to Vinny.
Yes.
Was iconic because the pass was incredible and the finish was great. The off-ball run from Vinny was amazing.
Yeah.
And the finish was amazing. And then
I think
we went into this like deep dive of Kroos finger point compilations and how many times he's done that and led to an assist.
And I think Jude's like surprise shock celebration after Vinny scored that goal was like, what did I just see? Well, what have I just witnessed?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there was a meme. Okay. Our several Cibeles celebrations last year had record numbers. I think the Champions League one, I would imagine, not the La Liga one. One of them, though, had a record number of attendance.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And yes, it must have been the Champions League one, I assume. But we got some really good memes from those two. The laughing and pointing off the bus. You know, where there's like Jude and Joselu, haha, hee. The sunglasses, the Jude, like when he has a couple drinks and he's a little tipsy, he like turns into a Spanish mastermind. Tony Camavinga dancing in the whole with Ancelotti.
Yeah.
I just remembered a funny one from the year before. It might have been, I think it was 2 years ago when we won in Paris. But when who was it? Was it Kroos? Someone tried to get there was like a bunch of them around and they tried to get someone to sing. And then they went, it must have been, I don't know. I don't remember. It's so funny though, because they start singing and he just goes, Madrid. And then everyone around them was like, oh, what's going on? What is this guy doing? I forget who it was though. I feel like that's not something that Kroos would do, but for some reason in my head, I think it's Kroos, but it wasn't last year anyways. Funny meme though.
I mean, what about also the iconic cigar picture?
Oh yeah, that's a good one that they now recreate every year.
They recreate, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, this team and this specific group of players, the celebration memes that come out every year are gold.
Funny. Yeah, they are gold. I'm looking it up as you tell me your next one.
I mentioned this in passing at the beginning, but the Super Cup win where Vinny and Jude terrorized Barca's high line, that 4-1 win. I have
Yeah.
that.
Oh, add to that the after the Super Cup win, the like GTA banner of Vinny, Jude, and Rodrigo that they all were holding.
Didn't Real Madrid themselves put that out?
Did they?
Or was that a meme? I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing that up because Real Madrid I think it's when they go to the US, they always have like those GTA kind of style posters on their social media where they kind of recreate it GTA style.
Oh, could be. Could be. I don't know.
I think I had one from this season, which was just Mbappe's presentation at the Bernabeu was
insane,
pretty incredible. I mean, the way they just the spectacle they turned it into was very impressive.
Yeah. One of the biggest, I would say, with the most like flares, lights, attendance, everything.
I don't remember where it stacked up against like with the Cristiano Ronaldo signing. If it had more or not, I can't remember. But either way, I mean, it was spectacular to see what they did for that. It was. Yeah.
I added the new Bernabeu to the list because it finally was completed this year. The roof, the pitch, the like
360 cameras
situation.
Videos.
Yep. A good one. Winning everything last season, despite like our goalkeeper, our 2 starting center backs, and everyone else that got injured last season, we still managed to do a double, technically like a fake brace or a fake treble, but domestic treble. Yeah, despite everyone that was out and all the injuries we had, was a good one.
Incredible, truly. Incredible.
Yeah, literally.
I think there's almost this tug of war that happens with like we won, we didn't play that well in a lot of moments, but there's also just so much heroism, so much reinvention amid like crisis after crisis in the injury department that Ancelotti pulled off, and these players stepped up. But it's pretty incredible. That's everything that I had on my list. I don't know if I needed to go deeper than that, but that's what I had. I don't know.
That's all I had too.
Okay, that's all you had too. Okay,
I did. There's probably some like little. Here's the thing, like you said, we're a little bit spoiled. So like, a lot of the things that we see are like, okay, we'll see it next match. See, Kroos will do this again in the next match. I met Bellingham last year. That's cool. That's a cool one for me. I met Bale also.
Yeah.
But Bellingham.
Where did you meet Bale at an EA event?
Yeah, well, they do like this event thing before the final, and he was there. I met Cesc Fabregas was a really nice guy, super nice, very friendly.
When you met Bale, did anything strike you about him?
Not really, like, other than the fact that he just didn't really want to be there, I'll be honest. Like, he just, like, he's aged gracefully, but he's aged. No, I just don't feel, you know how they say, like, don't ever meet your heroes, or, like, don't ever meet your whatever. It wasn't that bad. And, you know, he was probably there all day with everyone taking pictures of him and, like, whatever. So, like, I get it. But he just wasn't overly friendly.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I remember you remember that 7-3 loss to Atletico in preseason in New Jersey?
Yes.
I remember in the mixed zone after the game, he was coming through, and it was a bunch of Spanish media, and he just ignored them. And I said, I was the only one who tried to get his attention in English. I said, hey, Gareth, you have just a couple minutes. I didn't say a couple minutes. I don't know what I said. I got his attention. He stopped for me. I was the only one he stopped for, but he looked at me and he just goes, no. It was kind of like no, man. Like, it wasn't like it didn't feel rude. I feel like if it happened to anyone else, I think they would have taken offense to it. But I came away thinking, like, I totally get it, dude. Like, I get it. I understand. Like, I'm not sure I would like speaking to the media if I was a player. I also get that he seems to be a very introverted person. He doesn't talk much, like whether it's Spanish or English. So I didn't take any offense to it at all. And I love the guy. So it didn't bother me. But that's part of the reason why I asked. And then I remember I was at Anfield a few weeks ago and I had just loaded up. I was actually very social that day. I was talking to everybody. But in that moment, I had just loaded up at the buffet. I had a bunch of rice and just food on my plate. And I was trying to squeeze through. And he just comes walking through. And he was, I guess, doing a Champions League post-game or show with Rio Ferdinand pitch side. But he was just so dominating as a human being.
Yes.
Because he's so tall. He had his hair slicked back. He was wearing this beautiful, long coat. And he just walking through, and it was oh, and I was just
you're there with all your buffets.
I was just
hey man.
I didn't even. In that moment, he just walked through the room. I'm sure he didn't even notice my existence. I don't even think he registered that anyone was near him, let alone me. I was just this short guy with a plate of food. But yeah, I don't know. He's someone that I would love to get on the podcast or interview in some capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to map it out and try to figure out how to do that. Him and Tony Kroos. Kroos is the other one.
Oh, Kroos would be that would be good. That would be a good one. He was busy, I would say. Bellingham though, that meeting was cool. That was a cool one. His mom.
This
power woman.
Yeah, I remember you talking about his mom. Did that full video of that ever get released, or was it just clips of the interview?
No, I think the full video is on YouTube.
Okay.
I think it is now. I think it did. It was a good one. It was they cut some things out. Because he said something at the end. He was talking one of the questions that I had was, or someone had, I don't remember. But one of the questions was who, if you were stranded on a deserted island, which one of the players would you take with you? And then he said probably, I think he said definitely not Tchouaméni. He said probably Camavinga, or no, definitely not Camavinga. Probably Tchouaméni because Tchouaméni likes to sleep. And I was like, oh great, all you guys can do is sleep. And he's like, but not together or something like that. I was like, obviously. Everyone kind of chuckled, and then I think he was like, oh, that's not what I meant. What did I just say? That part got cut out, but it was funny. But yeah, nice guy. For as young as he is, he's very media trained.
Yes.
But his mom, you can kind of tell where that comes from, because his mom is very no, he won't be doing that, or yeah, that's fine, no problem. So it was my mission to get on his mom's good side.
Yeah.
But yeah, power woman. Anyway, that's all that I have.
It was a great year. Incredible year. Unforgettable. We've had so many of these unforgettable years. 2024 was right up there. And onwards to 2025, you and I should do this is just off the cuff thinking, but I'll talk to you about it off air. We should do a 2025 predictions.
We should, and then we should do a recap at the end of 2025 to see what we got right and wrong.
That no question. And also, this year in review is now an annual segment.
Deal.
The first of many.
Say no more.
I can't believe we've never really done this on the podcast. This is the first time I think I can remember that we've done it. So it took you coming along for us to figure that one out.
Can I say?
Awesome.
Hey, best moment of 2024, Leah joining Managing Madrid.
Yeah, it's true. It's up there for sure, along with the Kroos farewell. We replaced Kroos with Leah. Awesome. Well, Leah, enjoy the holidays. Stay safe.
Thank you. Likewise.
Hope it goes fantastic, and that goes to all the listeners as well. Thank you guys for being on this journey with us. 2024 in the books. We'll release one more podcast. I do an annual mailbag on the 31st. So just look out. I'll put out a call for questions, submit questions. I'll answer them on New Year's. And I think Sid is releasing something as well for Real Deal Pods. Other than that, 2024 wrapped up. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year. Peace out.
Bye.